What we have here in this Orange Bowl playoff semifinal is probably one of the more intriguing matchups in the playoff thus far. These are two teams in Notre Dame and Penn State that are built around the same mindset: smash mouth football, both on offense and on defense. On offense, via controlling the line of scrimmage and having a fantastic run game. On defense, elite defenses, ball hawks in the secondary, and elite playmakers on the defensive line, and efficient special teams that tries to take the ball away. In today's video, I give you my in-depth preview for this game and my official prediction. So, with that being said, welcome into the College Football 360 YouTube channel where we talk about and analyze every angle of the game. And this ain't just an in-season channel like some of the other college football channels out there, but we're going to do this all off-season long. Even in the dead of February and March, I got stuff planned for all of that. So, really quick, we got a lot to get into here today, but if I could ask anything of y'all, it is to subscribe, as it is the best and most efficient way to support the channel. I was looking into the channel analytics the other day, and it showed me that 91.4% of y'all who watch are not subscribed. If we could knock that down to 70, even 75, I would be thrilled. So, like and comment, do all that other stuff as well, but all I ask is for you to subscribe. All right, enough of that. Let's dive right in. All right in. This first segment here will be the last timeout segment where we just give a general recap of what happened to these last couple of teams. So last time out for the Penn State Nittany Lions, it was complete and utter domination in their first two games of the college football playoff. They beat SMU by 28, and it didn't even feel like 28. It felt like 50. They won 38-10 against SMU in Happy Valley, and then they went and played Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl and won that one 31-14. So, they haven't really been in a tight game. The Boise game was tight for a little bit. I'll give you that if you really want to argue that, but it was domination in my opinion, where you complete and utterly dominated them on the line of scrimmage via the run game, explosive plays, taking the ball away, and bottling up one of the best players in college football in Ashton Jeanty. So, they haven't really been in a tight game. So I'm interested to see if that plays a factor in this game, because it's going to be tight. Let me tell you, Notre Dame's going to keep it close with Penn State. Even if Penn State wins this game, it's going to be by a score. That's my opinion, at least. So it's complete and utter domination. It wasn't really even competition to begin with. They had the easiest path to get to the national champion. Even Notre Dame isn't like an unbreakable juggernaut like Ohio State seems to be, or if Oregon would have won, Oregon seems to be. But Notre Dame is beatable. We'll talk about Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's a really, really solid team. But I don't even know if this was even competition. I will have a video out on the playoff after the playoff is over. And so in the Boise State game, more consistent play calling, in my opinion, and they would have won by like 50. They would have won this game like 66-10 instead of 31-14. Because what you had was, on a lot of short third downs, they trusted Drew Aller throwing the ball downfield, and they have such a dominant running game. They can run it down anyone's throat on third and short, second and short, fourth and short, and they could have kept some drives together. There were at least 3 drives in that game that got stalled out because on like a 3rd and 2, Drew Aller's throwing the ball 20 yards downfield and he misses the guy. Or, he's flushed out of the pocket and has to throw it away or something like that. So that was something that I noticed in that game. Tyler Warren has showed up in a big way in both these games. Not so much in the SMU game, because the SMU game was like purely all defense pretty much. But he still made an impact in that game. He made a really big impact with an impressive touchdown catch early in the game. And he's the best tight end in football. What am I supposed to say? I mean, he caught 2 touchdowns. One of them was an absolute gem, the toe drag in the back of the end zone. Right there's where you can see Drew Aller's potential, by the way he put touch on that ball. I mean, I even put out on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter as well. Just look up College Football 360. I should be right there. I put out on Twitter. That was a beautiful throw by Drew Aller, and even a better catch by Tyler Warren. All right, so my grades for the Boise State game. The offense was very good. It wasn't elite because, like I said, more consistent play calling. Even though I thought they called a pretty good game. Defense was elite in the game. They bottled up Ashton Jeanty, and the special teams was great. It didn't hinder them at all, and they made the field goals when they needed to make them. Punt team was pretty good, and just overall, a really really nice game for the Nittany Lions. All right, last time out for Notre Dame. Obviously, they went into New Orleans, played in the Sugar Bowl, and beat Georgia. And a lot of people were shocked by it. It was by double digits. They went into the South, beat the SEC champion by double digits. When's the last time that's happened for Notre Dame? I tell you, it's been a while. It has not been since the college football playoff started. And I mean, they shocked a lot of people and beat the big bad. They haven't beaten a team in the college football playoff. They don't really put too many elite teams on their schedule, and those games are typically the ones they lose. You look back to Ohio State a year ago at home. They could have erased the narrative there, but they didn't. They lost in that game. They keep finding ways to lose those types of games. And Indiana was a really good team. But Indiana, is the type of team that you put on your schedule like Texas A&M, like really, really solid teams, not equating those two teams, but it's the same type of game that Notre Dame has played before. So I wasn't really worried about them losing or beating Notre Dame losing or beating Indiana, but they finally got a test, like a true solid elite test, and in Georgia. And I get it, Georgia was playing with a backup quarterback. I get it, this hasn't been the same as the 2022 Georgia team, but it's still the best program in football right now, the best head coach in football right now with Kirby Smart, and they coach laps around that team. They really did. So that's my big takeaway there. They played really sound defense. They took the ball away, and elite special teams. I mean, they scored a ton of points off of special teams. I mean, kicking, they had a couple field goals. They had the 98-yard kick return for a touchdown. I mean, just all around great special teams is what helped them win that game. I mean, they say special teams is kind of dead in the NFL. It is certainly not dead in college football. Let me tell you that, and I love it. And now they're rolling with two straight playoff wins. They should have all the confidence in the world coming into this game. Their offense did, they were mid. They didn't play the best. I mean, you can't really say that they were better than mid when your quarterback only throws for 90 yards, but they weren't terrible. They didn't hinder the game in any way, in my opinion. I mean, they didn't fumble, they didn't have an interception, and I think that overall was pretty darn good. And the special teams was elite. We already covered that. Okay, moving on from that segment, looking forward to this game specifically. I have four storylines here. They're pretty broad, but I think these are four things that I'm really looking for when I watch this game. How will turnovers play a factor in this game? Penn State's been good at limiting the turnovers on offense, but Notre Dame is elite at forcing turnovers, especially on special teams and of course on defense. So how will that play a factor in this game? Will they be able to pick Drew Aller off once or twice? Will they be able to force a fumble on a punt return, let's say? Will they be able to, so that's something that I am looking for in this game. And then how will Notre Dame score on offense? I think that's going to be a big one. I don't think you're going to do it by just running down the teeth of this Penn State defense, because Penn State's defense, as we will look at in the positional power rankings, which is the next segment, excuse me, the Penn State defense is pretty good, and that's an understatement. So, how will Notre Dame score on offense? I think that's a big one. I think you have to get creative with this offense. No, you got a lot of great athletes on this team. We're going to focus in on Jordan Faison in the next segment as well when we talk about Notre Dame's wide receivers versus Penn State's wide receivers. So, a little preview for that one. Um, so we're going to talk about all the athletes that are on this team. Riley Leonard, the quarterback, an extremely good athlete. Jeremiah Love, a great athlete. Can they get these athletes into a position to make a play? And that's all they need to do. They just need to get them in a position to make a play, but you have to get them there first. So expanding the playbook, giving Penn State looks that they haven't seen before. And I think that's how they score on offense. I mean, I think they can score on special teams. I think their field goal kicking's improved much. Maybe they get a kick return or a punt return way down there, possibly a touchdown. But specifically on offense, I think they're going to have to get really creative here. And then can Penn State handle the battle in the trenches? This is the biggest battle in the trenches they have seen since Ohio State. Since they played Ohio State earlier in the year, this Notre Dame front and their defensive front and their offensive front are both really, really good. They're not elite, but they're very, very good. So how is Penn State going to handle that battle in the trenches? They got a couple soft balls with SMU and Boise State, although SMU has a solid defensive front. But those are all like, 3 stars. They're handling the 4 and the 5 stars now. So how are they going to handle that battle in the trenches? And then special teams may decide this game. I've had a big emphasis on special teams so far in this video. Special teams may decide how this game goes. Both offenses may play about the same. Both defenses may play about the same. But I think it's whoever gets the edge in special teams may decide this game. All right, now we have the positional power ratings. We'll go offense, then defense, then special teams. We're looking at every single aspect of each team, and we will be giving the edges to each team based on the color. So obviously, if it's in the dark blue and white, I think the advantage goes to Penn State. If it's in the gold and blue, I think that is advantage Notre Dame. Starting off with coaching, I lean Penn State here. Andy Kotelnicki is a top 3 offensive coordinator in the country. I cannot say the same for Notre Dame's offense and their scheme. So we'll talk about scheme too, I guess, here. I also lean scheme. Coaching and scheme are very tied together. So if you look at the bottom of the chart, you will see scheme. I have that as advantage Penn State. So scheme and coaching go hand in hand. At quarterback, I think Drew Aller has the highest ceiling out of every quarterback left in the playoffs, and I believe he can really show up in this game. He has a one-of-one arm, just an absolute cannon, and he has very underrated scrambling skills, and he has learned to use those scrambling skills very effectively. Last year he seemed to not do, he seemed to just kind of do it sporadically, but this year he's really gotten smart about when to do it. Riley Leonard's very clutch, puts his body on the line for the win, and is elite running the ball, but his inconsistencies as a passer may really bite him in the butt in this game, especially against an elite pass rush that Penn State brings, especially with Abdul Carter. And we will talk about Abdul Carter in the next segment here. And remember, Georgia did not really have an elite pass rush. They had a really good one, but it wasn't near what Penn State brings. Statistically, Leonard obviously has better rushing stats as he is basically the second running back on the field, tallying over 700 yards on the ground. Drew Aller, however, has tallied over 3,200 yards through the air and 24 touchdowns. I'm going to lean Aller here, but this does not mean that Leonard can't outplay him via scheme and what they decide to do. I can't predict the future, So just deciding what they do, I can't downplay what Riley Leonard has done and what he will continue to do. At running back, I think you can't get any better than the way Penn State uses Nick Singleton and Katrin Allen. I think they are the number 1 running back duo in the country. I've said it on the channel a couple times, but I certainly do think that. And when you're number 1, it's hard for the other side to even compete with that. But Notre Dame does. They come darn close with the way that they run the option and get creative running the ball with Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love. In this game, my favorite Penn State duo, obviously. I trust Kotelnicki's scheme in running the ball over Mike Denbrock's scheme. So that's at running back. I think that y'all will agree with me on that one. Wide receiver, y'all may be a little surprised that I picked the Irish here, but I really like what they're doing with Jordan Faison, the all-around athlete. He's elite at what he does. He helped the Irish win the lacrosse national championship. He's an elite route runner with sure hands, even if he is a bit undersized. Him alongside Jordan Greathouse and Bew Collins make a really solid 3. And Penn State's playing a little down right now. I can't really trust their wide receivers. I really trust Jordan Faison in this one. He's come into this playoff and he's played really, really good. But the real question is, can Leonard and the offensive scheme get them the ball? At offensive line, I have total offensive line, then run block, then pass block. At offensive line, overall, I went with Notre Dame because Penn State has been very inconsistent, even against weaker competition in the offensive line grades. Sometimes they grade out all right, but more often than not, they don't grade out, especially in pass block. They don't grade out really well. They grade out below average. And then run block is very, very close. I almost went with Penn State here, but I went with Notre Dame. I just think they have the better offensive line as a whole. They're better at pass blocking, and I think they are slightly better at run blocking. Okay, so let's talk about the defense now. Coaching, I give the edge to Al Golden and his Fighting Irish. So past this, we will be talking about now pass defense and run defense. It's a little bit lower. I'm sorry about that, but these are the 2 main categories for defense. When it comes to pass defense, let's talk about the sacks, because sacks are a big part of pass defense. Penn State has 39 total sacks. as a team. Then their top three players with sacks are Abdul Carter, obviously. He leads with 11. Donnie Dennis Sutton has 6.5, and Amon Vanover has 3.5. Notre Dame has 37 total. Riley Mills, who obviously will not be playing in this one, leads the team with 7.5. Big Donovan Hinish, the defensive tackle, has 4.5, and the senior Howard Cross has 4. So it seems that Penn State has a slight advantage in the pass defense category, but sacks do not tell the full story, as Notre Dame only allows a 50.6 QB completion percentage against and only allows 146 total passing yards per game, while Penn State allows a 59% completion percentage and allows 170 total passing yards. Thus, all this being presented, Notre Dame has the slight edge when it comes to defending the pass. When it comes to run D, however, different story. Penn State averages opposing running backs to 3 yards per carry and opposing teams to just about 100 yards total on the ground. For reference, the number one team in run defense, Indiana, gives up about 2.7 on the ground and about 80, a little over 80 total yards on the ground. So, excuse me. Notre Dame, however, only gives up 3.57 a carry and 128 total team rushing yards. So here we go. Rush defense advantage Penn State because they have more dominant stats in this one. I think that they have the better defensive line, which is a huge part of it. Let's talk about that defensive line. Penn State's D-line is filled with stars and NFL draft prospects, and frankly, Abdul Carter, if he's on the field, will be monitoring that injury situation that he suffered against the Boise State Broncos. Assuming he plays at a high level, he's the best player on the field by a large margin. But even if he isn't out, Donnie Dennis Sutton is an absolute dog off the edge. In Vanover, like we said, they have some really big defensive tackles, and I think that the Nittany Lion defensive front has the edge over Notre Dame, and this is for sure without Riley Mills, their best defensive player. Not best defensive lineman, excuse me. At linebacker, this is an interesting one. Notre Dame has a very interesting room in how they play Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, and Jalen Sneed. It's really interesting, but Penn State features a lot of star talent in Tony Rojas, Kobe King especially, and Dominic DeLuca. DeLuca's been a splash player for them. You may not know him very well, but he's made a ton of great plays over the latter half of the season and in the playoffs, especially against SMU. He's provided a ton of splash plays and creating turnovers and all that. With all that being said, give me the Lions here with the edge at linebacker. At corner, edge Penn State here again. Jalen Reed, AJ Harrison, Zion Tracy. When you have them as the main guys in your room, you're doing well because they're absolute dogs and they're really, really good. And Notre Dame's corners, I think, did not play the greatest against Georgia. A comedy of errors from Georgia's O-line not showing up to Georgia's wide receivers for getting their hands back in Athens as they dropped a lot of balls. This led to Notre Dame's corners appearing but I think that a really good scheme drawn up by Kodal and a decent day by Drew Aller could expose them. At safety, here's where I see a clear advantage for the Irish as Xavier Watts I equate him to about a prime Minka Fitzpatrick-esque player at free safety, when he was at Bama. And his prime with the Steelers and the Dolphins, elite ball hawking skills coupled with the ability to play the run makes him really, really elite and a really good draft prospect. Scheme, I think Notre Dame has a slight advantage. Like we said, scheme and coaching go hand in hand. And then talent, I lean Penn State in my eyes. They have a really, really talented defense overall, more talented than Notre Dame's in my opinion. Okay, so as we move into special teams, I just need to remind you guys, if you haven't already subscribed, I know we've covered a lot of ground since the beginning of that video, but if you need a little reminder, there you go. Comment your thoughts down below. As always, I love communicating with you guys down there. It's one of the more fun aspects to being on YouTube is that you get to talk with everyone down below, and I really do like that. So let's dive right into special teams here. Coaching, I give the edge to Notre Dame. At kicker, both kickers struggled early in the season, and they're just finding their grooves with Mitch Jeter for the Irish and Ryan Barker for the Nittany Lions. And I do not see a clear advantage here. Both have struggled in the past, but they're completing their tasks as kicker effectively now. They've both been really solid when called upon. So, it's in the white and black because I don't see a clear advantage. At punter, I include the coverage team as part of the equation here, so I lean Notre Dame here as they have a really good punter, and they have a really solid coverage team that tends to force turnovers on a random occasion. At returner, it's fairly even here, mostly fair catches on both sides, and I don't see a clear advantage either way. Overall, I think Notre Dame has the decided advantage in the special teams game. Okay, as we come to the conclusion of the video, here is my prediction. This will be the last segment, last minute or two of the video. If you haven't seen my Ohio State-Texas preview, go watch that one as well. It should be up on the screen here, at least in a couple seconds or so. In my prediction for this game is that Penn State will provide enough offense and limit the takeaways, and I think they will beat the Irish by a score of 26-23. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one.